we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 10 o'clock. Welcome everyone to the February DDRS Advisory Council meeting virtually. Welcome. We have our two interpreters here today, so we do have them spotlighted. So if you're unable as a member, you can set up gallery for viewing so that you're able to see the other folks who are on the council as well. And you can go ahead and keep your camera on because we have them spotlit. It makes it so that it is accessible. So you can keep your camera on so I can see your guys' faces. We have a new member here today that I wanted to start out and have her introduce herself. Lexi Westerfield took over the role of the SAI representative. So I was going to see, Lexi, if you just wanted to say hi to everyone, introduce yourself, and if there's anything you want to share about you.
Hi, my name is Lexi Westerfield. I am blind, autistic, and have a mobility disability. I feel like that's important for me to point out because I have been on both the skilled nursing waiver at one point for 5 years and have been on the family supports waiver for 3 years. So now that it was the A&D waiver when I was on it, but now that BEADS and DDRS is over the health and wellness waiver, I think just my experience from being on the skilled care waiver and the DD waiver both gives me pretty cool perspectives that most people typically appreciate. So I'm excited to be here and share my knowledge and also learn a lot because I love to learn.
Great, thanks, Lexi. Welcome to our committee. Okay, I am going to do a quick roll call here. Let me pull up just to see if you're able to stay here. If not, if you're in a position where you're not able to and you just want to chat, that's obviously totally fine. Talee Clark. I know Talee was having some internet issues, so she might be joining. She had messaged me a little bit late. Sean Fulton.
I am here.
Hey, Sean. Katie Stafford Cunningham.
I'm present.
Laura Fife.
I'm here.
Kate Barrow. Kim Dotson.
I'm here.
Ann Titus. Jim Wiltz.
I'm here.
Lexi, I know you're here. Melissa Keys.
I'm here.
Carrie Lee. I think I saw Carrie. I wonder if she dropped off. I'm pretty sure I saw her. So we'll see.
I'm here.
Oh, am I pronouncing your last name right, Carrie? I just realized that.
You sure are.
Okay, perfect. I don't know. I thought it was that. I wanted to make sure. Derek, no worries. Derek Nord.
I'm here. Good morning.
Morning. Lisa Paddock.
Good morning. Yes, I'm here.
Morning. Loretta Springer. Kim Hahn. Kim, I think you're here. Sorry. Oh,
good morning. I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. No, you're fine. I think I know there's been some storms and stuff, so I know people are having some internet issues, I think, across the state, but I do see ya. Kelly Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone.
And now I'm just going to some of that is our council members. And then I also, and we have staff that support our DDRS Advisory Council, including myself. So I'm just going to check to see what folks we have here. Kathy Robinson. Kyle Ingram.
Hi, good morning.
Morning. Matt Rodway.
Good morning.
Holly Wimsett. I know Holly's joining us. I think she was going to be a few minutes late as she also had something that might run over. Teresa Colazar.
Hi, good morning.
And Christina Commons.
Morning, everyone.
Morning. And Billy Martin Johnson. Okay. I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Welcome. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, great. I'm going to just share. I'm going to wait and share the video. I have a video that's relevant to our employment conversation later. So I'm just going to wait and tee that up. Sometimes it's easier to get the meeting started and play the video. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Oh, hi, Kate, Desiree. Oh, okay, perfect. Thanks, Kate. It looks like Desiree Island is here for Kate Barrow, so appreciate that. So I am going to share just really quickly. We had talked, if you guys might remember last week, let me go through the slides here too. Hold on one second. I don't even believe I had this on a slide. As you guys know, we always share all people are empowered to live, love, work, learn, play, and pursue our dreams. Our mission here, and here is our schedule. So really quickly, just for the meeting schedule, we had talked last week, you guys, or last month, you might remember, talking through what a schedule would look like for the DDRS advisory and possibly doing less meetings, still obviously fulfilling the requirement around the statute, but increasing the length of the meetings. So what I'm going to propose is, and I think everyone was in agreement, I don't think I heard from anyone that that would be an issue, is instead of meeting 9 times a year, this year we're going to meet 7, and it would be every other month, and we will extend those meetings. So that ends up being, and I'll send this all out to you guys because I know you've got some calendar invites, and if I'm talking, you're not going to necessarily be able to write it down. But there'll be certain meetings, there's like 2 that we'll end up canceling, so it'll be every other month. Except we will meet August and September just because it's hard this year because we're starting this now. And so it just gets a little wonky doing every other month. And then the meetings will be from 9:30 to 12:30. And they'll be in person, except, and why we were able to do that is the meetings that I'm canceling, the 2 that we're canceling are virtual. So, and I was able to extend the meeting times of those meetings that are here in the government center. The one meeting will still be, the October meeting is the only one that will be virtual. And I'll send this all to you guys in an email as well. And then because it'll be a little bit longer, you know, we're going to think through, I'm going to talk to SAI and think through the structure of the meetings, you know, whether it's digging a little bit deeper into data, whether it's having a guest speaker, you know, really just being more thoughtful on what those meetings look like. And, you know, moving forward. So I think it sounded like everyone was okay with that when we had talked about it last month. So again, I'll send you those dates. I'll make sure your calendars are updated, that you have the right, you know, the right room, etc. So just moving forward, that's what that'll look like. And I'm excited. I think it'll be, even though it's a longer meeting, I know that's a really long time, especially for folks like me who have trouble sitting that long. So, I mean, we'll take a break, you know, 15 minutes or so just to get up and stretch, just because that can be a long time to sit and talk. So, okay, I am going to, let me make sure that was all I was going to share. I think it is. Get my slides here. Ignore that. We'll talk about that later. Okay. I am going to turn it over to Kelly to share for a few minutes some DDRS updates. And I will monitor the chat as well. If you guys want to raise your hand, that's totally fine. Sometimes it's hard, again, for us to monitor that. So you're welcome to chat, and I'll make sure that we're addressing any questions. Kelly, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Once again, hope you're all navigating this extreme cold and snow. I had quite a bit in my little section of the state this morning. Just a few things that I wanted to share with you, kind of follow up what we shared the previous month. Obviously, our new leadership is beginning to settle in now that we're 30 days post inauguration. The FSSA secretary, Robe, has been engaging and meeting with various stakeholders. I've often accompanied him in those sessions as he is getting to understand our provider network, meeting with some of those in larger groups, some small groups, also understanding our division and sharing information with him, meeting with individuals, obviously, that we support. We had the pleasure of attending the ARCS event, Valentine's Day at the State House last week, and we got to meet a lot of folks. So if you saw the pictures, I was blessed with lots of cards and some candy and some beautiful flowers. And Secretary Rowe was able to join us for that event as well. And he got to meet many of the self-advocates from throughout the state. So that was a very nice event for us. Just a few other things. We are intently focused, continuing to move forward on waiver integration and waiver reset. A big piece of that is integration of our systems, some of our operating systems. We will be moving forward with individuals that are supported on the health and wellness waiver and the traumatic brain injury waiver to integrate their service coordination, if you will, into what we lovingly refer to as the BEADS portal. We have targeted July 1 as the time of that transition. That truly is part of our ongoing efforts to align, obviously, our systems to reduce administrative burden, to ensure consistency, to reduce points of potential error, right? Less systems, less possibility for errors, to allow us to have greater access to data and support people on the back side of things. And then most importantly, to really improve the experience for the Hoosiers that we're supporting through those waivers. So that will bring the Community Integration and Habilitation Waiver, or CIH, the Family Support Waiver, or FSW, the Traumatic Brain Injury Waiver, or TBI waiver, and then the Health and Wellness, or H&W waiver, all into that BEADS portal. And that will serve as our operating system for client services. So more to come on that, I'm sure, in future meetings, and that would come directly from subject matter experts like Holly Wimsett and others on her team. But wanted you to know that that is a big part of what we're doing on the back side right now. In addition to that, I think many of you have likely seen some new announcements around management of individuals who are on waiting list. We recently implemented a 180-day timeline post-invitation for individuals to become active on said waivers for which they've applied. This truly is, after analyzing the data, an effort to improve access to waiver slots. I think we all know we've discussed this multiple times over the years as to how the system works, but each state identifies and has apportioned to them a certain number of slots for the waivers for which they've been approved by CMS. And we are only able to extend invitations and or have people that are active on those waivers up to the total number of those slots that have been approved within said waiver. So once we invite an individual, that slot is now held captive. And we certainly want anyone invited to have full opportunity to that waiver and to be able to take advantage of that. And yet we have also recognized now, about 7 or 8 months into our waiting list for pathways and health and wellness, that we have a lot of individuals that once they accept the invitation, they become inactive and they're not moving through the system. And so that waiver slot then is held and unavailable for anyone else. So this is an effort to put some expectation and timeline around moving through that process. Now, there are a whole lot of things on the backside. There are at times mitigating factors, and we are well aware of that. And if that is the case, those will be looked at on an individual basis. And I'm not going to go into all the details of that. But know that that has been factored into that 180-day timeline. And that has been discussed with our partners within the triple A's who serve as the front door, knowing that they can elevate those particular matters for consideration. But pretty excited about that. We're just continually working to improve that improve our processes, improve access, and improve communication. Obviously, you all know we're knee deep in moving toward the launch of our LCAR, which is the level of care authorized representative. That will be a change in the process for that front door level of care assessment for individuals accessing the pathways, the health and wellness, and TBI waivers. We are working to hit that timeline, working not only with the incoming vendor Maximus, but also with our AAA partners as we work toward that transition. Also recognizing the AAAs will continue to play a role in ongoing support for folks that are on the health and wellness waiver. And so this takes a lot of coordination and effort on our part. We are looking at those level of care functions across the board. And the Bureau of Disability Services, or BEADS, has now assumed responsibility and authority for level of care operations within Family and Social Services Administration. This is another effort to really align business processes and improve the experience for the end user. So this will closely integrate then intake, eligibility, and ongoing oversight of the waivers. So that would be housed within the one bureau, within the one division. Obviously, still continuing to coordinate efforts across the whole with Division of Aging and with the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. But that is the most recent iteration, if you will, or next phase of our waiver integration as we look to how we can improve the experience for folks. Everyone should be well aware that the public comment period closed for the waivers, health and wellness, traumatic brain injury pathways. I believe those have been submitted to CMS, but now open is the public comment period for the amendments for the family support waiver, community integration, habilitation waiver, and then the B4 selective contracting waiver, which is for our case management system. Within that, what I will refer to that traditional downstream for IDD support. That comment period opened on January 22nd and it runs through February the 23rd. There was a public communication from FSSA, BEADS, about the availability of some recordings from sessions and some training sessions around public comment. So those are open. As Holly Wimsett has shared with you previously, these are really just renewals, no substantive changes in those three waivers that I just referenced. However, they are currently open for public comment, and then that will close February 23rd.
How you doing?
I think, Jessica, that's about all that I wanted to just put forth at this
A
time.
little bit better? And better.
Okay, great. Thanks. Oh,
I'm hungry.
just make sure if you
Just eating
are
breakfast, apparently.
want to mute yourself. Can't. Oh, okay. Just in case if you're not speaking. Okay, thanks, Kelly. I don't see any questions or anything in the chat, and we obviously have the parking lot if something comes to mind and someone. Oh, Lexi, I see your hand.
Two quick questions.
Yeah.
My first question is there still
unmuted
a
for a second?
plan for there to be a high, medium, and low support needs waivers by November? Is my first question.
Okay.
My second question is there are so many, I hear a lot of stories, especially, I don't know as much on health and wellness and pathways and TBI, but I hear a lot of stories about FSW and CIH, individuals only using case management and barely even using that and not using their budgets at all. And I kind of like when you mentioned the slots, and I know there's going to be a decrease in slots coming with this waiver reset. I think that there should be like some kind of timeline that a percentage of the budget should have to be used in order for somebody to keep their slot. Otherwise, I feel like we're wasting slots on people who aren't using the services. And then there's people on the waiting list or people that need more that can't get it because there are people taking up slots that aren't using it at all, or hardly at all.
Well, first, thank you. Thank you for that comment. And so noted. I appreciate that and I appreciate your insights. On your first question, and if I don't address this fully, please let me know. We are continuing on our path forward with waiver integration and waiver reset, but I do want to clarify, I think you referenced this November. There are some amendments that are currently targeted for November, which would be some adjustments and iterations moving toward that goal of reset. But as previously, shared, we're really targeting kind of that full reset for 2027, and just currently working toward that goal. So while there is an amendment targeted for November of this calendar year, it's not that total reset. Holly or others, is there anything you would like to add to that?
No, I think you said it perfectly, Kelly. The waiver reset is not planned for November. That's 2027. And anything we do between now and then would be leading up to that, right? That reset. But if any items that would potentially be included for future amendments for effective date in November would not be the full waiver reset.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you for clarifying.
Oh no, it's good questions, Lexi.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lexi. Okay. Let's see. Oh, and Kim had mentioned sometimes people don't use their waiver because there are not resources available to them. So I think there's a good point, Kim. It's to keep in mind whether it's staff, you know what I mean? It might not just be that they don't want to utilize it, but it just kind of depends on their situation and whether there's staff and things like that in their area. So it's a good point. Okay. Thanks, Kelly. And again, I'll continue to watch the chat. We can always, if there's any other additional questions, we can move that to the end. Keep us moving. Okay. And we have let me look at my schedule. Christina Commons here to give us a BCDS update. So I will turn it over to Christina. I'll try to follow your lead with the slides. Christina, just let me know though. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but I will try my best.
I'll let you know if you need to go back or progress the slide. Thank you.
Okay, hold on. Let me get there. I think at some point I would figure this out. Maybe, I don't know, but then and I almost need 3 screens. Okay. There we go. Okay.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Christina Commons. I am the director of our Bureau of Child Development Services, and we oversee the First Steps program. Our state staff is very small. I don't know if most of you know that, but we have 9 total positions, and 8 are currently filled. And we had 2 new staff start at the end of October. So just giving an update on that, we filled our program services manager position. We had previously promoted the individual who was the program services manager to a new role, and then hired Danielle Rufino into that role. Really excited about Danielle. She has previous Part C experience or early intervention experience from Nevada. She's been a service provider, a service coordinator, a supervisor, and has worked at both the direct service level as well as like our systems point of entry level. So really excited about the experience that she brings to our team. And then we also rehired for the policy and family engagement manager position, adding the policy to the front end of that position title so they can assist David Brandon Friedman, our policy director, and more of that. And Andrea Dickerson is filling that role. And she comes to us from the Department of Child Services. So excited about the knowledge that she brings in working with families and helping manage disputes, or even just providing good support for families as they navigate our First Step system. And then our Director of Quality Assurance resigned in November. Maggie McCall had been in that in part of our team for 9 years, and she resigned. And so we are working to fill that Director of Quality Assurance role. We've concluded our interviews since I created these slides, and are working through the hiring process for that role. So we should be fully staffed by the end of March, which is exciting. All right, next slide, please, Jessica. Always wanting to come to you all with data regarding early intervention in the children and families that utilize First Step services. We previously, before migrating to our new data system, had profile reports on our website that I know stakeholders like to use when they were talking with their stakeholders or with families utilizing our services, or during session and those types of things. And we're working to recreate those utilizing our new database. But in the meantime, really just wanted to provide you an update on the number of children receiving at least one IFSP service during this time frame of July 1st of 2023 through 6/30 of 2024. We had 26,614 children at least receive one service, and then we broke that down into what types of services are those children receiving. So no surprise that speech therapy continues to be the #1 service that is being utilized by children and families. Next, with our developmental therapy or DT services, many of those professionals also provide language support, language development support to children and families. So really, the need for services around speech development, language development, social communication is really where a lot of children and families come to us for support. Occupational therapy being third, and physical therapy, they're rounding out the top 4. And then we do provide nutrition services, social work, and psychology services. Now, mind you, these are during that period, they received at least one service. We have been trying to address the number of social workers that are available to families to help them navigate their child's diagnosis and other social services. So we're still working on that front. Next slide, please. Over the past 1.5 to 2 years, we've been coming to you with some capacity building data. In January of 2023, we increased service rates for First Steps. Prior to that, in 2022, we were hearing that agencies were having a very hard time retaining and recruiting staff. And we had a very high service coordinator turnover rate as well. And so we did some surveys, we looked at data, and decided that we really needed to address the starting salary for service coordinators, as well as the service provider rates for all of the other services that we deliver. And we're able to increase those in January of 2023. So we've been really looking at the data around the number of individuals who we have been able to attract and retain in the early intervention system, so we can build capacity to help serve families timely and delivering those critical IFSP services. So in SFY 23, we had 2,310 individuals enrolled in our First Steps program. And then in SFY 24, we had 2,529. So we were able to increase the number of individuals enrolled in the system. And then, as you know, we've been not only tracking the number of people, but also the hours delivered to those children and families. So next slide, please, Jessica. Jessica, can you move to slide?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, there we go. I can't get
So-
to the right.
That's okay, no worries.
I'm sorry.
So we've really been looking at the number of hours billed by those individuals that are enrolled. So this is just looking at direct service providers, not our service coordinators. So those are those occupational, physical, developmental, and speech therapy providers, as well as nutritionists, audiologists, social workers, and psychologists. And in SFY 23, we delivered 570,052 hours of early intervention service. And then in SFY 24, we delivered 676,129 hours. What I do not have on this slide is if you look at our data that we reported to the Office of Special Education Programs, the number of children that we served or had an IFSP from October 1 of 2023 through June 30 of 2024, and then the year prior to that, we really only grew by 13 children. So what this is telling me is that the number of people growing in enrollment and the number of people that were already enrolled are now working more and delivering more IFSP hours of service to children, which is great news considering in 2022, we had roughly 1,500 kids waiting for IFSP services. So for a program that is not allowed to have wait lists and must deliver timely services to children and families, this is fantastic news that we are growing our capacity and we're able to serve more children and families timely. I do see in the chat, Lexi, you had asked if First Steps offers blind and visually impaired services. We do. We provide blind and low vision services through our visually impaired preschool services entity, and they deliver those services statewide for us. And then we also have other agencies that have other providers that are trained and knowledgeable in how to work with children who are blind, low vision. I hope that that answers your question. Okay, so thinking about the capacity data and what I just reported to you, I really wanted you to see, last year I came to you at this time with our annual performance report data, and it was not great. As you can see in federal fiscal year 22, we were only 64.98% compliant with timely delivery of services, which is from the date that the family signs their IFSP to the initiation of that IFSP service, that it happens within 30 days. And for FFY 23, we increased that compliance to 77%. The target and the requirement from our Office of Special Education Programs is 100%. Great news that even though we didn't hit that 100% target during the monitoring period that we were looking at, we did review subsequent data for Q2 and Q3, and all of our systems point of entry came into compliance and were delivering timely services to children and families. And all of those children that did not receive their services timely had at least had their services initiated, which is fantastic news as well. So next slide, please. Also wanting to share with you our indicator 5 data, which is our child find effort. So we are charged with trying to find all eligible infants and toddlers in the state of Indiana who could benefit from early intervention. And we have had a really big focus on trying to find more children from the ages of birth to 1, because we know if you get started with early intervention, the sooner the better, and we have the best outcomes for those kids. And we increased our percentage of birth to one age children with IFSPs to 2%, which is fantastic. When we set our targets several years ago, we had set a target of 1.42%. I think that this goes to our efforts with our marketing contract that we have with Caldwell Van Riper, our social media presence, the great work of our local programs and their local policy and planning committees, that they are working to ensure that all of our referral sources are knowledgeable about first steps and know how to make great referrals. And we're helping families understand the importance of surveillance of child development and what to do if they're concerned with their child's development. So this is fantastic. Next slide, please. The next indicator is also around child find, but really looking at that full continuum of birth to 3 with IFSPs. And we continue every year to grow in the percentage of children that we're serving. So this year, 6.24%. Our target was 4.3%. When we do reset targets here in a couple of years, we will definitely have to think about where that target will be and work toward that. But again, great work for our systems point of entry and the work that we're doing through our outreach and marketing. Next slide, please. And then the final indicator that I'm going to report on today is the timeliness of IFSPs. This kind of goes to our capacity building in terms of service coordination and the number of individuals that we have enrolled to provide evaluations for first steps to determine eligibility. And so in FFY22, we were only at 66.7% compliance. And this year we hit 97.9% compliance. So we have been able to recruit more service coordinators. We are paying them more, so we're able to retain them. Our SPOs are doing an excellent job at maintaining and delivering quality workplaces for those individuals. And I just think that this is a great testament to the hard work that they've done at the SPO level around good quality service coordination to families and making sure that infants and toddlers have an IFSP within 45 days of being referred to our program. So excellent. We have, over the course of the last year, been working with our vendor for our data system, which we call EI Hub, on remediation. What does that mean? It means that the system that we have been working with didn't meet all of the requirements of our RFP and our contract. And so we've been working with that vendor for them to come into compliance and deliver the product that we purchased. So starting in May of this past year, we sat down with the vendor and we identified all of the gaps in the system and developed a plan for how we were going to remediate that and what the functionality of the system would look like. We spent 20 weeks writing user stories, and those are stories of describing on what the development will look like and what the functionality will be for the end user. We developed a plan for how we were going to develop those user stories and deploy them into the system. We created a plan that will have 17 sprints. I'm using IT terms. It just means 17 planned development of those stories to get that functionality in place. That will happen over 3 releases into that system. We just completed our January release. So excited to report that that was by far the best and cleanest release we have ever had in this system. I've noticed that our state team and our vendors team, we all have just rallied around wanting this system to be the best that it can be. And I think that our team here at the Bureau of Child Development Services is getting extraordinary support from FSSA in helping us ensure that we are holding up our timelines so the vendor can be successful in this as well. And it's been a real team approach. Our next release is scheduled for, actually what's missing here, but we're going to do a release here in the next week or so to get some long-awaited progress note functionality into our system. And then the one after that will be in April. So I'm really excited and pleased with this remediation work that we've been undergoing. And then obviously our schedule is subject to change because we don't want to release things that are going to create more bugs or issues for our end users, but excited about this work. Next slide. I would be in trouble if I did not mention our conference. Registration for this event is open. It will be in Bloomington again from on June 12th and 13th. We used to host a 1.5-day conference with an optional pre-conference, and we've shifted that to just be 2 full days of conference sessions. We used to also only do 1 day of a hybrid or virtual conference in addition to the in-person, and we're doing 2 full days of that virtual live streaming in our main conference room, which is exciting because we sell this conference out very quickly, and this virtual option does provide more people with an opportunity to attend. We're going to do some longer sessions. We've been asked by our conference attendees to accommodate deeper learning in some topics. So we're going to be doing that as well. And the in-person rate to attend is $125 and the virtual is $75. And again, that registration is open through that link on the slides. Jim is asking where in Bloomington the conference will take place, and it's at the Monroe Convention Center. I think that they have plans to expand. I'm hoping they do, because we currently can only, the capacity is 500 attendees, and I think we could probably grow that to at least 750. It's such a popular event and such a wonderful experience for early childhood educators and early intervention professionals. So if you are interested, please do join us in June. And Jessica, I think that's it.
Christina, I did put the link to the conference. I know the agenda is obvious, but like if for registration and everything,
Thank you.
they have a really good website. I mean, it's a really good, shares a lot about the keynote. So I actually shared that with everyone, not just the panelists. So if we have any folks here who are listening in, please take a look at that. It's really easy to follow and see what's going on and register.
Thank you.
Let me see. That was a really good question too, Lexi. I think about the blind and visually impaired services. Let me see, Christine, I want to make sure. I don't think I see anything else. Does anyone else have any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Jessica, I would just add too that not only do we provide blind low vision services, but we also provide deaf and hard of hearing services as well. We have 2 early intervention agencies that deliver statewide services for those children as well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's commonly known. So that's why that's a good question, Lexi. I think that's a good question because I don't think that's known necessarily. So. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. And I'll follow it too. If anyone else thinks of something, we can always circle back. All right. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle really quick just to introduce. We've got, as you guys know, so much going around on the employment space. I'm going to try to, before we start that, Kyle, see if I can get my, see if I can share this video. But if you don't mind, Kyle, as I'm trying to tee this up, maybe just sharing who's going to be talking with us today. Just gives me a second.
Yeah, I'll vamp while you're getting things together.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No, so yeah, I think thanks, Jessica. I'm very excited to have Will and Pam both here today to talk through some of the things that are occurring right now that have been in development or been in the works for a while, and we're happy to share some updates about those. So I think first we'll hear from Will Cotrion with our vocational rehabilitation program. He is the Supported Employment Plus program manager. Did I get that right, Will? Yeah.
Yep, that's it. You got it.
All right. So we'll hear from him, and then after we hear from Will about the Supported Employment Plus program, I'm really excited to have Pam Verbarg from the ARC of Greater Boone County here with us to talk through some of their work as part of the Employment Transformation Collaborative and with their their transformation grant. So, Jessica, did I fill enough time for you to get through?
You did. I appreciate
right.
it. I'm going to see, I always forget the audio. So let me see. This is what I always forget, the difference between Zoom and Teams with sharing a video. If someone can remind me, let me know. Because I know there's like a special thing you have to hit. So let me try it and see if it works. Okay. I don't know that this is going to work. This is a video, really just pretty simple, right? And again, but I thought as I was looking through a video that I thought would be applicable for today. Yeah. Anna says you have to check the box when sharing. Okay. Just really around employment, and right. It's not, and you guys know this, but I think it's just, I don't think it's, for folks with disabilities, I think we focus obviously on the importance of employment just generally, but I think it's also really around, the community that's built and the friends that you make and sort of those connections. As we all know, I love my job, but part of the reason why I love my job is because of the people I work with, right? And the connections and just the support that you have, and not just again here, but just, how that plays out in your life as well. So let me video closed caption. Okay, let me see if I can get this to work. And if not, I'm gonna have to, the problem is I'm not seeing the checkbox. I think that's my issue, but okay. Tell me someone give me a thumbs up if you hear this, okay? You guys aren't hearing it? Hold on.
No.
All right, hold on a second. I don't know where my issue is finding the box, where it is.
Jessica, do you know, is the video closed captioned?
I don't know. Let me see. Hold on
Okay.
1 second. Yeah, let me see. I think it's because it's when oh, there we go. Okay. Yep, share sound. Okay. I don't know why it does that. How do I know if something is closed caption in a video? Anna, if you can come off mute or you can tell me, that would be helpful. Because or Teresa, I don't know I don't know how I know that.
The three dots. If you have
Yeah,
the
look at the
option.
three dots.
Okay, and then just hit close. Okay, there we go. Got it. There we go. Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, here we go.
Example, for example, is working with somebody. A colleague was telling me that they had somebody that they were working with, right, where their family said to them, they were having a holiday meal, right? They were having a holiday meal, and for their son had recently gotten a job, right? And it was the first time out of so many years, right, that the person hadn't been working before, right? This was their first job. And it was the first time that their son looked to their relatives to say oh, what type of job do you have, right? What kind of work what kind of line of work are you in, right? Because it's making those connections, having somebody see themselves as a worker, all of a sudden is opens up this whole other world of opens up a whole other world that you're connected to, right? That you may have been seeing sort of tangentially as you're going through life, right? But now all of a sudden you're a worker, right? So now it comes with a host of all of those other things I was saying, right? Your team meetings, your staff meetings, right? So those are now lingo, right, that somebody didn't have before, right? So now I look around me, you know, whether it's at a, you know, in my program or at a family gathering, and now I'm sort of curious, like, what about you? Do you have a staff meeting, you know, or what's your holiday party like, right? And that's really kind of, I think, the goal here is that, like, there's just this whole world of work that people don't even know they're not even connected to, right? So just, you know, having a job, right, all of a sudden it's like, wow, it exposes people to so much, right? So that's, I think ultimately that's our, you know, our goal is it's the job, but it's really the connections to community at a much deeper level, whether that's within the organization or company itself, or just within, like, society and at large.
Thank you guys. I was showing captions, so I'm hoping that you guys were able to see it. It was showing on the Zoom. So okay, I just liked that video. I thought it was pretty impactful. I mean, pretty, you know, short and sweet, but I think it is pretty clear, right? That it's not just about really the job and the financial aspect of that, but so much more than that. So okay, I'm going to give me a second, Will, and you can go ahead if you want to get started. I'm just going to switch over and share my screen now to your
Sure.
sites.
So
You can tell a funny joke or something. I don't know. You're a funny guy.
Okay. I don't have any jokes off my sleeves. We'll see if I come up with something. But no, I am Will Coltrion. I am the program manager for Supported Employment Plus. And that is a part of vocational rehabilitation. And it is one of our programs that focuses primarily on the shelter workshops, or those earning sub-minimum wage, so below minimum wage. So I hope that you all know at least a little bit about it. If not, I'll give a quick overview though. So it is Support Employment Plus, or SE Plus as it's come to be known. It's a Disability Innovation Fund grant that we applied for and received in 2022. It is 100% federally funded. It is scheduled to last 5 years, and it totals around $14 million. Jess, would you mind going to the next slide?
Yep.
You can. So we're carrying it out through a model demonstration project. We're using 5 providers across the state. The providers were selected based on their interest, their ability to carry this out, the amount of individuals they had in shelter work. And with that, we came up with, we found Benchmark, Marshall Stark, Stonebelt, Sycamore, and then recently we actually expanded to include shares. And so the primary focus again is to help those in sub-minimum wage or those contemplating sub-minimum wage to transition to competitive integrated employment, or CIE. I'm just trying to kind of get through as many of these the alphabet soup as I think we're going to get into. But we chose the name Support Employment Plus, or SE Plus, because it built on what we know works well, which is good old-fashioned support employment, plus a few other services, namely fidelity of our services. So we have done fidelity reviews with all of our sites. And then based on those fidelity reviews, we either determine they were at or above fidelity, which would allow for an enhanced billing. Or if not, then we would use those fidelity reviews to determine areas of improvement and use that for targeted training and technical assistance. We also, as part of this SE Plus, we include other interventions. So we use peer support specialists, enhanced benefit counseling, family engagement, embedded folk rehab counselors, and then an integrated resource team approach. Would you mind going to the next slide, please? And sorry, can you go one more? I think I went over some of that as well. Okay, so with SE Plus, we've hopefully found a lot. However, with any sort of demonstration grant, we're always trying to think about what can be done statewide and what can we learn from it. And what we have really learned with SE Plus is that collaboration between VR and sites leads to better success. And so we came up, we kind of knew this would be something we would find, but we have just proven ourselves right time over with this. So how how we kind of set this up was we had site leads. So they are our dedicated liaison between each of our pilot sites and me. So it's sort of a one-to-one conversation. Anytime I have a question, I know exactly who to go to. Anytime they have a question, they know exactly who to go to. And we sort of speak for our entity. And so, if I don't have the answer immediately or they don't have the answer immediately, we both sort of know it's our responsibility to reach out to the rest of our team and make sure that we are sharing accurate information. And that's really helped, I think, improve our lines of communication. Really, we've been able to build strong relationships. We also have, as I mentioned earlier, an embedded voc rehab counselor. And so each of our sites have a voc rehab counselor that is specific to the population working with SE+. And so they know who to go to for questions, and they have a presence on site. So all of our SE counselors, they're there at least once every 2 weeks, and they've really gotten to know the people that are working sub-minimum wage. And then whenever they become referrals to voc rehab, they already have that relationship. There's already a knowledge base. They're also able to sort of serve as subject matter experts in regards to employment. And because they're at the sites, and most of these sites offer services well beyond employment, these SCVRCs are able to talk to folks in residential services, day services, all types of services, and really sort of promote and talk about employment. And then the other piece of collaboration we have is our training and technical assistance. So we do have a contract with Public Consulting Group to do our training and technical assistance. And similar to the embedded SCVRC, they have a training and technical assistance liaison that they can go to. And they can ask for assistance in really anything they think they might need assistance in when it comes to supported employment. And these guys can help develop a training for them. Also, these training and technical assistance folks, they are working very closely with me and with our SCVRC. So when we notice something, either at one specific site or across all of our sites, we can very quickly address it through training and technical assistance. They've been really good at working with our sites and determining how to best deliver that training. And so obviously not everyone wants to just sit in front of a computer and do virtual trainings. We also don't always want to do classroom trainings. So we do ride-alongs, we do sort of shadowing with our staff. So really we've been able to develop a very strong partnership with our training and technical assistance team and our sites. Can you go to the next slide, please? So with this, we've also found some barriers, and the number of the two barriers we're seeing the most are staff capacity and then misinformation. And misinformation is, when I say that, I'm talking about misinformation regarding benefits, specifically SSI and SSDI, as well as some sort of unrealistic fears that family and caregivers may have at times. Unfortunately, the staff capacity sort of exacerbates the misinformation. If there's not enough staff to combat the misinformation is only going to grow, make the problem bigger, and we don't have enough staff to deal with it. So they kind of, unfortunately, these two barriers affect one another. Would you mind going to the next slide?
I had a question real quick.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if this, and it might be okay to, I think here. Lexi had asked, does an individual graduate from SE Plus once they're settled in CIE like they would VR in general?
So
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So whenever you're in SE Plus, you do have some additional services beyond sort of traditional VR that go a longer length of time. And one of those, Lexi, in particular, is more of a follow along when it comes to benefits. And so oftentimes when we talk about benefits, we'll have that conversation with them early on during the process, and then we might have it again later on, sort of just as a reminder. As part of SE Plus, you have an ongoing relationship with a benefit counselor to ensure that sort of as things start to change for your SSI or SSDI, you have someone there to sort of help sort of re-explain it and help remind you to report your earnings. Also, because we have these embedded SCVRCs and we have the peer support specialist, there's a few more sort of people they can interact with beyond what they would traditionally interact with just VR. And then the integrated resource team I'll get into in a second, we'll also talk a little bit about how that sort of allows for services beyond. So some of the solutions that we have found to these barriers are the peer support specialist, which it is an individual with similar lived experiences to many of those in the shelter workshops. Many of them are individuals who had one time worked in a shelter workshop and then found a job in the community. And they work at each of our sites, and they are really there to sort of be cheerleaders for employment, but also to use their lived experiences to explain the employment process. They all go through an initial training, and then we work pretty closely with me actually as the project goes on. To really what we want to do with each of these peer support specialists is we want to find what are the needs of the agency and the individuals using that agency, and then what's really sort of special about that peer support specialist. So, for example, at one of our sites, we have a peer support specialist who she used to work shelter work. She eventually found a job in a retirement home, and she found that she really liked sort of doing group activities with the individuals in the retirement home. So we use that ability that she has from her other job in her role as peer support specialist, and she does a lot of group activities with folks who are in the workshop and talking about employment. And when she talks about employment, it's not necessarily in a way where she's just sitting down and saying, "Let me teach you about employment." Rather, she might have a lesson on how to dress professional when you're going for a job interview, but she'll do it in a way where she is, instead of just talking about being professional, that she's painting her nails and telling other women in the thing how to paint their nails and giving ideas on how to dress. It seems like it's just this fun thing where she's talking about how to dress nice and how to do hair and makeup, but she's actually talking about professionalism in the workplace. We also have peer support specialists who they can talk through very specifically how they get to and from work using public transportation. And they can probably do that better than just about any job coach or VR counselor can, because these same folks are using that exact same public transportation. We also, like I said, have this early and ongoing and enhanced benefit counseling. So my background is in benefit counseling and explaining this SSI and SSDI. And so it's really sort of baked into everything that we do. I often say that the misinformation regarding benefits is sort of everywhere all the time. And the best way to combat it is to have as many people as possible who can be out there and just sort of reassure people that, no, you will be okay if you go to work. We can explain all the minute details when we need to, but for now, just know you will be okay and financially better off if you work. We also have a family liaison who works very closely with our sites, and her role is to really sort of talk through issues that families or guardians may have. And she can do that because she has the background as both a family member, as a person with a disability, as well as having a very broad view of our system, because our current family liaison is our former DDRS director, Kylie Hope. So we sort of pulled her back in, and she is acting as our family liaison, working very closely with our sites and our CVRCs to identify common issues that are brought up by the families and guardians and addressing them head on. We also have a community of practice. So all of our SE Plus sites, they meet at least monthly, and they have an opportunity to really talk through issues they're facing. And we also, it allows them to sort of talk through issues, work on everything they're doing together. We have capstone projects, which those are special projects that each of our sites are working on to specifically identify issues they're having with staff capacity. And then we have an integrated resource team approach, and or IRT. And the IRT approach is really an opportunity for everyone who sort of touches an individual within SE Plus to get together and talk through employment and employment goals, and how the employment goal relates to whatever it is that entity is working on. So case managers, day service providers, they all are sort of available to be in the room and talk about how they can best support employment. And it looks like I had a couple questions. Lexi, I know you mentioned some of this is taught in CCIR. That yes, a lot of this is very similar to CCIR. And again, we just sort of believe that the repetition is great. And sort of the more we can do, the better. I do have some of the information I can share.
Hey, Will, do you care do you want to read the question out loud just in case?
Sure.
And sometimes everyone can see it, but just in case folks that aren't part of the committee.
Sure,
okay?
yeah.
Okay.
So we had a question, Will, do you have materials on the benefit misconceptions that you can share and we can make available on our website too? We have primarily what we're using now is actually a series of videos that we filmed where it's, sorry, it's me talking about benefits. And the way that those were filmed was really they're short, they're sweet, and they're just sort of a way to give a more positive spin on how it is that we can talk about benefits. And so one of the main things we often see is when people talk about benefits, they will oftentimes use language where we'll say things like, you know, you can go to work and still receive benefits if you do X, Y, and Z. And while we understand that some people may want to maintain the benefits, we also want to make sure that we're promoting it in a way that people know that you will be financially better off working. And we want to have that more positive spin on it. And so again, instead of sort of talking about how to work and keep benefits, we just want to say, how can you go to work and do the most you can do while knowing that you can still have safety nets if you need them? So it's just kind of a slightly different way of explaining it. We also had a question, how much of the grant have you received to date? And have you gotten any indication that this grant is in jeopardy of being canceled? We have not gotten any indication of that. It was a front-loaded grant, but you know, obviously there's a lot up in the air right now. But we are moving ahead as though, you know, business as usual, moving forward and hoping we won't see any change to this. I hope just as much as anyone, because my job, obviously, but yeah, that we haven't heard anything. And so we're just moving forward as is.
Thanks, Will. Teresa had a comment too, just, it's not really a question, but Teresa, I don't know if you, and I'm happy to read it, but if you don't just want to jump in real quick, just to share what you shared in you.
Sure. Yeah. I just kind of going back a couple questions. I think maybe Lexi asked about folks graduating or exiting. Just as Will said, that might take a little longer for folks in SE Plus because part of the model is some enhanced services like the kind of follow through or more ongoing benefits counseling. But there would still be an exit at the end of the day, similar to any VR participants. And some folks, most of you probably know this, but for those individuals that we determine may need some ongoing longer term supports, including after they leave VR, we do have a process already in place that we're also using for SE Plus, where we work to transition those ongoing supports to a different fund source. Often that's a waiver, or it could be natural supports, could be Medicaid rehab option for maybe someone with mental health concerns. But yes, people would still exit once they achieve their goal.
Thanks, Teresa. I will just share the link to the host. I will share that link as well to everyone. So if there are folks on here who, again, aren't committee members, that is the link that Will was just talking about.
Yeah, so the link I just sent is to the SE Plus website, and that has all of the that has the videos that I talked about with the benefits. So yeah, in summary, you know, the things that we have found are that enhanced communication builds better collaboration, which we hope will lead to more career pathways. And I think that what's best about this is that although, again, we are finding this specific to SE Plus, we're fairly confident this would work anywhere. And so the good news is it's a relatively simple idea. If we communicate more, we can collaborate better. And so we are hoping that we can take that and sort of expand it whenever and wherever it's needed.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. I don't see any other questions. You get the award maybe for the most questions of a guest that we've ever had. So, which is good. I mean,
good. Okay.
No, I like it because I think it's, I appreciate it. I think, and these are all really good questions that I think are beneficial for everyone. So appreciate it.
Good. Yeah.
Hey,
thank you.
Jessica, do you mind if I add really quickly? And
no, go ahead.
I can, we can drop a link in it too.
If you that'd be great.
Read about a few folks who participated in SE Plus and their outcomes. We did feature a few SE Plus participants in our annual report at the end of 2024. And you'll see those folks, you know, what we tried to feature in those successes, kind of regardless of the outcome of the individuals or where they ended up working, really was that all three of these had some kind of perceived barrier, right? Like their family, their support team, there was some reason why, you know, they were maybe not encouraged to work, or some reason they maybe thought they couldn't work. And by having the deeper conversation, peeling back those fears, all three of them got past that perceived fear or barrier and ended up working. So I think that was a big point of what why we wanted to present today, is to share that a
Yeah.
lot of these lessons that we're learning have really centered around collaboration and conversation and communication, and just getting past the initial, I can't do that because as soon as you start backing that down and peeling that back, a lot of times you're going to find a path to say, oh, I guess I can. So I'll drop a link in the chat. If
Yeah,
you
that'd
want
be great, Teresa. And just make sure when you do it to do everyone, you
Yep.
know, just because that'll be the folks. And I think, Teresa, if you don't mind, I don't know if most folks, I don't know if you guys follow, VR has I mean, Teresa, you have a Facebook page, I know, obviously. I mean, follow to them if you're on Facebook. Because, and maybe, I don't know, Teresa, if you mind sharing what the exact name is, because I think they share a lot of good information on their Facebook page. Videos, you know, I think again, if you're on social media, that's where, I mean, I work here, but I think a lot of people that I know that don't, that's where they see a lot of stories, is things we're sharing on social media. And so feel free to, if you're on social media, to follow them there as well.
Listen,
Oh,
we
go
have one
ahead.
last question I could take. So
Yeah.
Lexi asked, she said that she has a lot of friends at Tradewinds Workshop. Can we expand it to Tradewinds? Unfortunately, we're not able to expand this right now. But what I can tell you is that, you know, again, what we're learning, we're hoping that we will be able to work with other folks in a workshop, if not sort of under the banner of Support Employment Plus. Obviously, we will still be able to support anyone who wants to look for competitive integrated employment as opposed to the workshop.
As well. Great questions.
And those folks can apply to VR. So
Yep.
VR
Yeah.
services are still available statewide everywhere.
Yeah, and that's a good question, Teresa. I was going to say, I think Lexi, encouraging them, you know, it's their services in their life, right? So, you know, encouraging them to explore, right? Not, you know, and not just through these programs, but what else is available that, you know, and just generally, right, in natural supports and things, to just continue to advocate for themselves and what they, in the support they might need to get there. Thanks, Teresa, for putting that in there. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Will. I appreciate you joining us as a guest today.
Yeah, thank you.
Even though you didn't have any jokes, so you know it's okay.
You know what? Now that it was on pressure, if I
got
would have
time.
tried it, if it didn't hit, it would have been so
It would have
bad.
been real awkward and
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to maybe Kyle. Are you there? If not, I can introduce.
Yeah, no,
Pam. Okay.
Sorry, you cut out. Maybe that was on
Oh, that's
my end.
okay. No worries. Go ahead.
Yeah, again, I want to introduce Pam Pam Verbarg, who is the executive director at the ARC of Greater Boone County. ARC of Greater Boone County was a member of the Employment Transformation Collaborative that we held for 2 years here between 2023 and 2022 and 2024. She reached out with a great story, and we thought it'd be an excellent opportunity to just provide you all with insights into what was happening in a specific agency as part of this work. And yeah, so I'll turn it over to Pam. Pam, certainly don't feel like you have to fill the full the rest of the hour, but please don't feel rushed, because I think we are ahead of schedule. Is that correct, Jessica?
Yeah, we are a little bit ahead, Pam.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no worries.
Okay. Because this is actually a topic I can talk about for a long time, but I tried to keep it as consolidated as possible. But as Kyle said, we shared a couple stories that came out of our transformation, and want to just share a little bit of how we did that and how we went about things. And the first thing I think is key to mentioning here is some evolution of thinking. You know, and that's with a whole bunch of our stakeholders. And really, this kind of started at our board. And I have to predate that to my arrival at the ARC of Greater Boone County. It probably started about 10 years ago. Some of you remember Steve Savage, who joined the ARC of Greater Boone County for a very short time. But he kind of rattled our board to the core when he joined the organization, because Steve came in and said, we need to close the sheltered workshop. And anybody who knew Steve would not be at all surprised with that, because Steve was a major proponent of supported employment and community employment for folks. So those discussions started then, continued through Andy Kirby's time there, and, you know, starting at my first meeting, we started talking about, is sheltered work the ongoing choice for people that we support? And as opportunities, particularly this transformation grant opportunity presented itself, the board came to the realization that if we're going to do it, we should do it while we have supports to make it happen. That our board of directors has been walking hand in hand in this whole process through the whole thing, is continuing to walk with us. As you know, there's a little bit of trauma with some families who've also are undergoing changing and thinking, and we know that that's a process. We've also worked with our staff in that evolution of thinking. Surprisingly enough, and again, some of you know some of our team members, we have a great supported employment team, but our supported employment team very quickly said, you're talking customized employment for some of these folks who've been in the workshop for 20 years. We've worked with some of them before, and gave a little bit of pushback on some of that thinking. And not surprisingly, our workshop staff in particular were very protective of that group of people that they supported and weren't sure that this was the right way to go or that we could even do it. And then, of course, talking with people we support. I would say that was our easiest group by far. That group, when we started talking about making the shift away from sheltered work to paying people a competitive wage, they very quickly jumped, well, yeah, that's what I want. And then we're continuing, as I mentioned already, to work with families on that as we go. But it is definitely an evolution, and it's something that we will be continuing to work on as we continue to move forward as an organization. So as we got the grant, we started doing our planning with that, and of course utilized the training opportunities that were presented through the transformation process and did our planning process and all of those types of things as we did that. And as we built our grant plan, how we built our transformation grant was adding some positions to support the grant. So we had a project manager throughout that grant time period who helped support making sure that we hit deadlines and got things done that needed to happen. We brought on a job developer who has been working on building community connections. We also brought in a position in our day services program that we call a community navigator. We currently have one. We have space for another as staffing allows. But that's a position that is really focused on getting people out, volunteering, participating in community activities, exploring things that they love. And it actually ended up being a resurrection of a position we had pre-COVID where we were doing that. So it's provided some really nice opportunities for people to do some different things. We have a fabulous little game store here in Lebanon who is very welcoming, and he has invited groups in for years to come in and just play cards. And the folks who are at the game store at the same time interact. That was the number one request when we made this change, was we get the gaming club going again. So that group is going out on a regular basis and doing that. I mentioned training on there a couple of times, and that was not a mistake. Training was a core piece of what we did, and we did use the Open Futures platform and some other opportunities to train that I'll jump on in a second. But training has been, and continues to be a key part of this, just to make sure people know what we're doing philosophy-wise, what we're doing, and knowing the nuts and bolts of what they are able to do. And again, working on staff with their thinking about refocusing from what somebody can't do to what people are able to do. Our plan also included reorganization of the organization to accommodate and to focus on employment first. So we've done that. We focused on building profiles, and we've built profiles using a iteration and some modifications of charting the life course kind of combined with the job development process and supported employment. So we are building profiles built again around those strengths and gifts of people and what people are wanting to do so that we have that. And then we are using those profiles then to build what programming is going on, both in terms of work experiences, as well as what we're doing with folks in our day services programs. We've added some work skills training. And in our plan also included, and I will come back to this in a minute, is anybody who wanted to work would have an opportunity to work. So we've stuck with that. And our plan, and you'll see we didn't hit that date because we exceeded it by a whole bunch. But our plan was we were going to end pre-vocational training use of 14C no later than May 31st of 2026. We established that date because that actually aligned with our 14C certificates. So we knew 2024 was a renewal date and that we'd have a second, depending on how quickly we were able to implement everything, there may be a second renewal in between there. So 2026 was our original date. One other thing we did as part of that grant planning was we did utilize other resources and opportunities that came up as well. And those really aligned very closely with this transformation plan as well. We've used an IPP grant. That IPP grant was focused initially on hiring people with disabilities and small businesses. And we ended up pivoting, not so much because we couldn't get people hired in small businesses, but we weren't spending the grant fast enough to eventually supporting people to start their own businesses. And I'll talk a little more about that later as well. We also had a project come open in Boone County with our Economic Development Corporation, where they joined into the Counties of Inclusion program that was funded through a grant through Mitsubishi Foundation with James Hammett and Associates. And we've participated in that with going out with James to build relationships with more businesses. GXO was an early IPP phase 1 grantee who also committed to really focusing on hiring individuals with disabilities. And we've worked closely with them on hiring more people. Also at the same time, NEON, through the ARC of the United States, was offering employment training opportunities. So we used that for some customized employment training with our staff over 2 years. We purchased one of our production partners as an organization. One of our biggest production partners is a company called Mr. Canary Company. And their owner is in her early 70s. And she decided in 2013 that it was time to retire. And she offered the ARC of Greater Boone County the opportunity to purchase the company and convert it into a social enterprise for the organization in 2023. So in October of 23, we purchased that. And that part of our program also is a key part of that workforce readiness and helping people get ready to go into more community integrated employment as well. And then our final other opportunity, because we couldn't have enough, was we also worked with our United Way, and we have started working with United Way of Central Indiana under their Family Opportunity Fund. And this aligns not because it focuses on people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but it's focusing on workforce readiness on other at-risk families in our community. If you didn't know, we are also the WIC provider for Boone and Hendricks counties. And that work is helping us equip families to be more financially secure as well. And that also allowed us to purchase some curriculum that we are able to carry over to all of our programs. So we've got some great workforce readiness curriculum that we are utilizing in that. So our planning was very extensive and did pull in a lot of different resources to help us make that happen. Then as we implemented the plan, obviously we started focusing on community integrated employment. And we did that through the obvious things, some increased referrals to VR, We did some internal hiring. We still have one person who fills in as a part-time receptionist from time to time. We also hired our first person as a direct support professional as an organization from individuals who are working in our workshop. We've focused a lot on community hiring, as I already mentioned. We've done, through our IPP grant, we did some expanded internships and job trials where people were able to do paid trials, and one person did an extended internship with an organization to get those things happening. And then we've also focused on self-employment. And as I mentioned, internship, our team just met this week because we're continuing to evolve some of this. And I was really excited to hear that when our day services and employment teams got together, they're looking now to also look at what we've been doing over the last number of years as an internship program with our pre-ETS youth on extending that to individuals in our day services program as well. So they are in the process of establishing a couple of internship sites and then working with some small groups to do those as well. And then as we did that, we also did a lot of work and implementation on shifting our expectations. I already mentioned, it's like talking with people about strengths and possibilities has been a key piece of doing this, and recognizing that sometimes it's our own expectations, including mine personally, that have limited people in what they do sometimes, because we'll say, oh, this person can't possibly do this because of this quirk, or they've tried this job, or they've done all of these other things. So we've been really working with our team overall to look at those possibilities. And my last statement on here is why not? And ask that question, why can't they? Why not? What's it going to hurt to try it? And starting to look at things from that standpoint, as instead of always saying, oh, well, you know, they couldn't possibly do that, which we are at fault of doing. And then we did have Sean Roy come in and do training with families, also kind of on that general topic. Unfortunately, as you know, getting families to meetings after hours sometimes can be difficult. But we did have some really great conversation with families when Sean came in and did that training. He also left us with all that information and said, implement it as you need to, because I think we do recognize that ongoing need to talk with families about letting go. And as Teresa and Will talked about too, that need to be constantly encouraging families that they really can set those high expectations. The best example that came out of that was one family who we've worked with for a number of years, and their daughter has worked in the workshop. She's been with us or been served by us for probably 3 or 4 years now, but came from a program in Illinois where she did similar work, worked in a sheltered workshop, made some sub-minimum wage. And dad's comment through the whole thing is, my daughter can't possibly do that. You teach her something to do and she's going to do it that way for the rest of her life. She will never, ever, ever undo what she learned. And she couldn't possibly do some of these things. And then mom kind of gradually through the meeting, as we're talking about different things, well, does she do chores? And dad's shaking his head no. And mom's like, well, yeah, actually, I have her do this, this, and this. And the young lady was sitting there as well, because she came with her parents. And she's telling Sean, here's the things that I do at home. So she was able to do that. And she's one of the success stories I'll share when we talk about the expectation. So I mentioned our timeline. When I looked at our original timeline, we set 2026. When we implemented our planning process, we actually had set our transformation date to January 1st of this year. And in July of last year, the team came to me as they were working through things. Our team was meeting weekly to talk about what they wanted to do. And they said, we shouldn't wait. We really need to do it faster. Okay, so tell me what the date was. And I had actually presented to the team a date that I really wanted to do, but January was our compromise. And they came back and said, we need to do it October 1st. So we actually implemented everything October 1st because their conviction, once we got to a certain point, was why do we need to just prolong this? We need to rip off the Band-Aid and be done and get everything implemented. So that's what they did. So they set that date. Even prior to July, the team had already started doing some shifts in our day services program. I mentioned a United Way grant that we utilized, and with that United Way grant, probably in March of last year, we started doing some workforce readiness classes. And Jessica, you can shift that whenever you're ready. But we started doing some workforce readiness classes and using some of those as some focus with individuals. We started building the profiles. We started doing all of that. And the day services program has gone through a significant shift of building their schedule around choices of individuals that we support. It's not perfect because obviously we are still dealing with and working with groups of individuals who are working together. But the team has worked really hard on grouping individuals kind of together as much as they can who have shared interests so that they are working on things that they want to work on. And each staff has also been empowered that as they are working with their small groups, if their groups give them specific things and they have a topic or something they were going to do that day, be it a cooking class or they're going out to do a community activity, that if the team of the individuals that they serve says, I really would rather do this instead, that the staff have been empowered that they can make some of those shifts too as the day goes on. Now, the shift can't be, I'm just going to sit here and draw or do something minor, but if they're continuing to participate and do meaningful things and it's the choice of that group, they're doing it. We've added community groups. I mentioned the gaming club. We have a group that goes out and volunteers by maintaining some snack boxes around the community and have built relationships with folks all around the city. And some of those community groups do a variety of different things. We've got sites that are really close by that they've gone to help at the food pantry and our Humane Society, and there's another place that does meals a couple times a week that they've gone in and volunteered with. They're also going out regularly to various other social things. So they've built relationships with a couple of our senior communities in town, go out and volunteer with those groups, do some co-opt activities so that there's that social interaction going on a regular basis. I mentioned profile building. Those profiles are no longer stagnant. They're no longer things that sit in someone's file and gets pulled out when we decide we need to reassess things, but they're updating those profiles a couple of times a year to make sure that we're adding interests and skills as we get to know more things about people. And we're also doing flexible scheduling between programs and jobs. So we have a couple of people who now work community jobs who come in and out of day services. And we also do the same thing with those who are working in the Mr. Canary social enterprise as well, that individuals are building their schedules around that work time so that they're able to have choice, but then not just going home and sitting and not having other opportunities, because everything is really built around getting to know the person, their strengths, and building those profiles so that those who do want CIE and supported employment have that opportunity to do it. So, and we're also doing lots more integration between our supported employment team and our day services team, probably more than we've ever done. So also before the change, I've mentioned Mr. Canary. Mr. Canary has shifted to, it is not integrated at this point in time, but it is a competitive employment model. So as we did that shift, we built the profiles not only of the individuals that we support, but we also built the profiles of each role. And broke out each job task by what their job and tasks were. set expectations, like on the picture of the workstation number 2 of, okay, my workstation number 2 is tube labeling and perching. And the goal is 1 tube with a perch every 22 seconds. And that equates to 82 tubes and perches every half hour. Each workstation has the expectations posted so that everybody knows those expectations. That is the competitive expectation. So while each person is going for that expectation, their pay is staggered based on where they're able to hit on that, starting at $7.25 an hour on up. And we also built an employee handbook. We did experiential interviews where people picked, here's what I want to do. And I forgot to put this one on here because, as you could see on the tube labeling and perching, we've got tube labeling machines. So whenever possible, people are using automated equipment to do those steps. So what we're wanting to do is help people build those profiles to say, I'm a machine operator. You know, I don't want to just say I am filling a tube with a cup, which has been a process that has been used before, but we have a filling machine that people use to fill that with so that they can say, I've used this machinery to be able to work. And then we hired positions. We had, before the transformation, about 40 people working in the workshop. And initially, I kind of let the team go and we got busy. And one thing that happened at the very last second was when we did our shifts and we built what we needed in terms of labor and we looked at everything, we had more people than we had shifts, which is a problem. Because if you remember, I said in our grant planning, anybody who wanted to work could work. And we ended up with about 16 people who weren't going to have jobs when we set up the actual schedule. And thankfully, I have staff who are bold enough to speak up and called me out on it. And they called me out very appropriately and in private, not in front of everyone else, and said, Pam, you said everybody could work. And particularly, there were 2 ladies that we have served for 30 plus years who were going to be left out because of aging issues, decreased mobility, and decreased speed. And I'm like, okay, help me solve it. We're working really hard. If you've heard of above the line thinking, we're thinking about, you know, how to stay above that line and not go into the blame game or excuses. But it's like, no, you are absolutely right. And I think she was crying. She had me in tears too, I'll be honest. But it was that moment of, oh man, you are right. We have some people falling through the cracks. So we did some very, very quick brainstorming. Our team came up with the idea of we would have our associates, and our associates work between 3 and 12 hours a week, and they have assigned shifts. Those other 16 people were hired into what we call intern positions. And those individuals work 1 shift a week with other focus on work, and still work at least minimal hours every week and have that opportunity. Now, remember, these individuals were making sub-minimum wage, and some of these workers were making less than $1 an hour before. So working even 1 hour a week in some cases was making more than what they were making before. And it was that I still want my paycheck thing. So we were able to do that. The other humbling part of that was, you know, why didn't that occur to us sooner? Because it's not a huge financial commitment. That 16 people for an hour, maybe even 2 a week, was like a $10,000 swing. And it's like, it's worth $10,000 to do that. It's not that much money, and it's well worth it. And if we have to fundraise to hit it, we'll fundraise to hit it. But this business is a for-profit entity, and it can make some profit. And the goal with that was to help it feed our mission, and that's exactly what it's there to do. So then October 1st, we had our associates hired, we hired our interns. We also worked out schedules for those remaining hours if a person was to be here all day. We've had individuals who want VR referrals who've done that. And as I mentioned already, we had more automation. So we threw that all into place. And I mentioned the tube filling and sock filling machines. Those are the two machines that we use now every day to fill tubes and socks. So we have that. And we did reassign our staff. So our staff who'd worked in the sheltered workshop, one became our day services manager. And our work services manager, who's worked in a variety of roles with us, she started in our day services program, is now working with the day services programming on profile building and helping to understand and train people on individuals' needs. She's kind of taken on more that case coordination type role that we needed. We were really blessed when we acquired Mr. Canary that the person who had been their chief operating officer came on board. He now runs the production department, and Nathaniel one is fabulous. I can't speak enough great things about him, but he also gets the mission. He's the sibling of a person with a disability and really gets it. And he's really pushed the team to think outside of accepting what people could do. And I think that has been the biggest message there, was set those high expectations, because initially our staff said, there's no way people are going to hit those numbers, and we have people hitting them. And then we do have two former DSPs who are now production coordinators or production coaches. And they are in the role of material handling, making sure that stations are set up properly, coaching people throughout the day, looking at accommodations we need to make to help somebody hit their goals, but none of that is billable. We're not utilizing any VR or other funds or waiver funds or anything else to hit those numbers. We are utilizing all, they are Mr. Canary or Main Street Management Services employees. So they work for that company, and they are part of that team and are in there in supervisory roles. And as I mentioned, anybody who wants to work has that option. So then we do have and have established a hiring and evaluation process. So as I mentioned, we have our interns, and that's how people come into the business. And since we started October 1st, we have brought in 4 new individuals who were in our day services or from our wait list. Actually, it's 5, because we have one person who's now an associate who became an intern, who's been since hired as an associate, who came from our day services, wasn't even working in the sheltered workshop beforehand. We have experiential interviews going on with each person. We've shifted our production schedule. We used to do a lot of hurry up and wait, and we'd have down times at times. So we would do our work schedules based on demand. We've really leveled that out, so we have a balanced production schedule, so that while we may have to amp up at times when big customers like Walmart give us last second orders, which did happen in December, we try to have a predictable schedule so people know I'm working 12 hours a week or I'm working 9 hours a week, so that they know this is their role here. And we also do 60-day evaluations. And we do see this program as the next step to community integrated employment, so that anybody who's wanting to go through the VR process, again, Nathaniel and his team are meeting with our employment team on a regular basis to talk about anybody who they think, one, is hitting production goals and could make that leap, but also talk about those individuals who say they want to do that. And in the 60-day evaluations, we are looking at production rates. So we want folks to hit about 30% production at that $7.25 an hour, but we also hit different thresholds that have different raises. So basically every 10 to 15% is the next raise level. So we now have a wage range that ranges from that $7.25 entry level to $14.50 an hour at the highest level. And we do have individuals all between there. Our highest paid person is at $14.50. We had somebody who was able to hit 100% competitive rates in what she does. But that young lady who I mentioned, whose dad said she could never relearn things, when she worked in the sheltered workshop, she was making $2.87 an hour on average, was her last quarterly wage. She's now making $10.75, which is tremendous. And this is somebody whose family didn't think she'd survive in a competitive environment. Additionally, the team has also started doing some creative accommodations. So you see in the picture here, one of the young men is wearing a headset. He loves podcasts, and he works better and stays more focused when he's got the headset. We have one lady who is fabulous. She's one of our most dependable workers, but she's slow and steady. Partly because we've learned she doesn't really have a great sense of time. So we have some individuals who work with countdown timers to help them do that. What we learned with her is when they established the countdown timer, she was beating the clock. So she'd beat the clock, hit the stop, but then she'd wait for it to click over for the next time. So we had to do a little additional retraining with her of, okay, if you beat the clock, you could just keep going, and you keep going at that pace. So they've really been looking at additional ways to do that. And then we're also evaluating what the other needs are for that business. So we've owned it just a little bit over a year. And as we've grown it, obviously one of our goals is growth for that business, and looking at how we can go from being on Amazon, Walmart, Kroger, a couple of those stores, to expanding our market. Because by expanding our market, we could, in essence, add shifts, we could add hours, and we could potentially even integrate the workforce there as well. So we're looking at how we can do that, but we're also looking at a couple of positions that are also hiring and creating some additional opportunities for workers with disabilities. And one is, we had one of our staff who left unexpectedly for some family reasons for a couple of weeks, and having an on-call production coordination support. And obviously that needs somebody with some humility, but we want someone who we support to actually kind of start taking on some of those supervisory responsibilities. And we're also looking at hiring an order processor, and we're looking at those being in the 15 to 1650 range. And then finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about self-employment. And I will say, as we talk through the hiring and evaluation process, not everybody fits the production mold, and not everybody is completely happy with some of the changes. We had a couple people retire in the midst of this, and one of the people who retired 76. It was time. He was ready. Another person who retired, just working wasn't his thing. And he is perfectly happy to be doing his community-based activities and other things on his schedule. But we've also utilized our IPP grant to help people become small business owners. And the last picture that Jessica just put up here are some of our artisans that we are working through things with. And the two in the middle, I'm going to highlight, because these are two people who, as we have been making our transformation, are two of the people who don't easily fit the mold for competitive integrated employment. They have struggled a bit with going from working in the workshop, 20 to 30 hours a week, to only being there an hour a week. And we're looking for some additional things to do. And some last minute brainstorming with families came up with, let's talk about what they like. And the lady in the gray sweatshirt actually was a very last second person, because she was a recommendation from the gentleman in the Hawaiian shirt. He is not happy with not being able to work all the time, is wanting more meaningful things to do. And in talking to his sister, she talked about things like rug hooking and other fiber things. And I'm like, but then she's backing up and telling me, well, he likes to rug hook, but He has a hooked rug kit that he's been working on for 4 years. It's like, okay, so that's probably not the best option. Let's try something else. And I will confess, I have a couple of these at home myself, and they make hats. And they are a hand knitting, or it's a knitting machine that will do a cranked out hat that looks like a hand knit hat, but you can do it in like an hour versus many hours for hand knitting one. We tried him on it. He loved it. So he's a small business owner. Other folks here, we have a lady who's doing dyed clothing. We have the lady on the far right is doing all kinds of things because she's the master of all. She has a 3D printer. She's making resin jewelry. She has a sewing machine, several other things that she's getting going. The lady in the blue has a heat press, and she is doing heat press t-shirts and bags and things. We have a gentleman who's doing carpet cleaning. And I will say he's another great example. He's a person with very limited verbal skills, but you give him a piece of equipment or you give him something physical to do and he can do anything. He's another person who was not working at all before we did this transformation, but he's doing that. We have a lady who's becoming a glass artist. She's got a fusing kiln and is making beautiful jewelry. And she's still learning how to use it. What we learned as we learned how to use the kiln is that once you find the right program, it's a run it yourself type of thing. So now that she has the program, she comes in before she does her other work and sets up the kiln and pushes the start button, and it's running for the day. And then at the end of the next morning, she can come in, pull her stuff out and get it ready. So we have that. We have somebody who's doing silversmithing, and a person who's doing photography. I forgot the DJ. We have somebody who's DJing, and he's got his first couple of jobs lined up. And we have a gentleman who came to us through VR who's podcasting. So that's been really exciting as well. And some of these took some pretty significant investments. Our probably lowest investment was $500 in a person, and $500 to start a business. And that has just been, and to watch people's faces as they're doing some of this, and the two in the middle, like I said, we're kind of falling through the cracks, and they're going back and telling all their friends about it now. So it just kind of is, it's kind of just started rolling as we went with it. So that's kind of how we did it. And I drive my staff crazy because being a creative, I will say, I'm just like, okay, let's do this. And they're like, oh God, Pam, please slow down some days. But it's been a great process for our staff to also think a little more creatively and outside of the box. I have somebody who just kind of, with the lady with the 3D printer, she's become her support. And I don't know how to use a 3D printer. I did learn how to put one together. That's about the extent of my knowledge of those. But we've been able to get some staff who've seen these guys in action and have said, I want to help. So we've got some of our day services staff and our art instructor jumping in to help support people just to keep their stuff flowing now. So it's been fun. Like I said, it's not been without its challenges, especially as we get folks up and running and we get those changes implemented, because obviously we can't meet everyone's expectations. We do have a couple of guardians who still are clinging to that, but I want my brother making bird feeders full time. And we're like, I'm sorry, we're not set up to do it that way anymore. And they then have to make their decisions how they want to approach things moving forward. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Pam. This was awesome. I don't know if you're reading the chat, but I'm laughing. It says Sean says, I wish more people were like Pam. And then Lexi says, I agree. And I said, we need a sticker that says, I don't know, like be like Pam or, or what's the, like Michael Jordan, but no. No, but thank you. This was awesome. I really appreciate we wanted to have someone who actually, we can share this information, but it's when someone who's actually, doing the, the work and fully, ingrained in it. It's nice
Yeah.
to hear. And so thank you so much for sharing. I don't think I had, let me see if you have any questions. I don't think anyone has any questions. Just
Pam,
kind of
I
get.
just want
saying-
to thank you too for sharing your story, Pam, and just I've told you in person, but I want to say this publicly. Just hats off to you, to you and your leadership team, to your entire team, and really getting behind people and supporting them and being person-centered, focusing on strengths. And I got so excited when you first chatted with me and you were talking about, and I'm so happy you shared it today, the individual who went in that sheltered work environment was earning $2 an hour, and now look at what they're earning, and how what you are doing is opening doors for people, and not just financially. It's just opening doors to relationships and greater involvement. So just hats off and thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for being honest. It's not always an easy journey. So
No,
we
it's not.
appreciate it.
Yeah, Pam does not say no, which is my favorite. She'll just, it said, which I love. She's like, maybe, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
well, and I didn't talk about the evolution, but we talked about makerspace even, and Jessica's feedback was, well, do it, but make it in the community. And we couldn't find anybody who would host it because they were too afraid of liability of having makerspace. So it's like, okay, what if they own this stuff?
Yeah.
So these makers have stuff that'll go with them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you, Pam, so much. And if anyone has questions too, we can always pass them on. And
yeah,
Pam will be sharing this and her, as we're sharing out all the information from the IPPs and everything over the next couple months. So, okay, let's see. We only have about 5 minutes, but we did have a couple parking lot. One question, Kelly, or I'm sorry, Teresa too, was Katie had asked, have you heard anything about potential impact to voc rehab and employment services in light of what's going on at the federal level with DEI? I don't know, Teresa, if you mind.
Sure. Yeah. Unfortunately, no, we haven't gotten anything specific. So we're, trying to make sense of information that is out there publicly, but we are operating, business as mostly typical right now. I've had some just normal routine interaction with the Rehabilitation Services Administration, our federal oversight agency that sits in the U.S. Department of Education. They've been responsive to just day-to-day kinds of routine questions, but no specific guidance or any changes that have been rolled out to us.
Great. Thanks, Teresa. And Kim, I think you might be our last. You had one question, I think, if you want to type it here, or
I'd
say it out loud.
I just, it's, if you don't mind me saying it out loud,
Yeah, go ahead.
it's kind of in response to what you said earlier about the new meeting format and thinking about how things will run in the future with more time. I put in the chat, I don't know if I can see it now, what did it go? What an advisory board is supposed to be, at least according to AI. And I don't know, can you see it? Oh, there we go. Having another speaker, I don't know, it's great to hear from people. It's great to hear what's going on, but I didn't really sign up for this to be informed all the time about things. It's nice, I don't mind learning things, but I think everyone on this board, they just bring such an amazing group of perspectives that probably the bureaucrats just don't have, And so I thought that what we were here for when I took the position was to be on an advisory board. And so, as you're thinking about revamping these meetings in a different way, I hope that you will really think about revamping them in a different way. I've been here long enough to know that no one's asked me a question, not one time. And I would love for, these people that came today, I kind of wrote a little note. I'm like, how can I help you? What they come and they report out, that nobody has a question from the advisory board. So I'm just throwing it out there as, you just brought it to my mind when you talked about,
Yeah, no, I think, and that's the whole point. I think that's what we're trying to figure out is, because I agree with you. I don't think anyone, we also don't want to, we want to hear from people. You don't want to just hear me talk, right? So I think that's a good, what April will entail is hearing from you guys, what you also think this should be, which you're sharing right now, right? Is, and bringing in new speakers, hearing from you guys, going through and not just having the same sort of sharing out process. So I appreciate that feedback.
Just as opposed to like bringing in another speaker. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, Jessica, I had the one question from earlier.
Maybe you did.
Yeah,
I
if the
don't know if I
waiver
missed it.
reset now is scheduled for 2027, what is it that's planned for later this year? Are there less all-encompassing waiver amendments? Because I'm kind of unclear about like what is August, or if that's not, and I'm not complaining about no waiver reset at the end of this year, but I'm just wondering, like, that kind of feels like news.
Yeah, hi Jim. I can jump in if that's
Okay.
okay.
Okay,
And
thank
just
you.
Holly, just FYI, I'm gonna try
Oh,
not
we
to
are
have
at
you go
noon.
too-
Okay.
Well,
So-
go ahead, just real quick. I don't want to
Yeah,
cut you
real
off. I'm
quick.
just trying to be
I'll
respectful
talk
of people's
fast.
time.
The waiver reset that timeline hasn't changed. It's always been 2027. What we are planning is potentially some additional waiver amendments with an effective date in November of this year. And while those are things that will certainly support that longer journey to waiver reset, that's not waiver reset. But we haven't really moved the date of waiver reset. It has always been it's always been not 2025 and closer to 2027.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Great. Thanks, Holly. Okay, we are at time, and I will, this is recorded, as you guys know, and it does get put onto the YouTube channel. I do not do that. And so, give us a little bit of time, a couple days. I have to record, save it, and then get it to our comms team. And so if you don't see it, it's probably not going to happen necessarily today, just because there's a long line of things that are happening, right? So, but if you, just be patient, and then if you don't see it, just shoot me an email and I can make sure that, to follow up with that. So, and yes, April's meeting, there is no March meeting. April's meeting will be the longer meeting. And I'll send around a invite. I'll update all the invites, the public calendar, etc. Just make sure that gets out there for folks. Just need a little bit of time to do that because I wanted to announce it to you guys first. And if you have any questions, thoughts, again, we're always here. Kim, if you want to have a side conversation with me, we're always open to having conversations around what this should look like. And as I'll follow Pam. I mean, nothing is a no, right? I always want to figure out how we can make this meeting the best it can be for everyone, especially folks that we support. So, hope everyone has a good rest of your February, my least favorite month, and we're moving into spring, which is good. And so take care and hang in there.
You too. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.